Meher Baba says, a tavern keeper first receives cash from a customer before handing him the wine glass. He checks the coin to ascertain whether it is genuine or counterfeit. Similarly, the Sadguru also demands his price, not in money, but in love, before giving you the gift of love. You can deceive a wine seller by passing him counterfeit coins, but never a Sadguru. He has no use for false coins, the show of love. But love entails pain, the pain of the pangs and thirst of separation, while constantly burning. This gradually minimizes the strength of the ego and eventually destroys it, because love never thinks or cares for itself. It just burns its victim in love for its beloved. This burning gradually diminishes the ego, and thus it is eventually totally annihilated. In this fire, love makes its victim realize the self. 30th March 1930, Nasik.
We can continue our remarkable story about beloved Baba and how this incarnation is different. This Advent is different than all the previous ones. This is the first time for many things. And as Baba awakens us more and more, and as his wave of awakening spreads and deepens, the significance of this becomes clearer to us. But it takes time. Nevertheless, it will be very clear how different this Advent is. And as we have talked about, and he has said so many times, that something that has never happened before is going to happen. And he is not exaggerating. It is the truth. So this time he came to awaken. And I think, did we talk about awakening? Yeah, we talked about how this time was not about teachings, not about setting precepts and do's and don'ts and any of that. This time he came to flood creation with his love and melt all of those do's and don'ts that have all been congealed in sanskaric impressions within all of our beings. This time he melts them at a global level. He said, this time it's universal. It's not just for a few to climb up to divinity. It is for everyone. And of course, it's going to take time, but so how fortunate we are to be in the first wave. We stopped last time at the discussion of Sanskaras. This is another first. Up to now, nobody talked about Sanskaras. They were referred to in passing, but nobody knew what they were, or nobody talked about the details of what they were. But this time, and Baba said that he is the first one to tell us about what sanskaras are, because just like, they used to say that atoms are the foundational elements of creation. Then they said, no, there are elementary particles that are even smaller than atoms. And then more refined, and finally they now say there are strings. There are 11-dimensional strings that are the fundamental units of creation. And Baba says the same thing. Baba calls these strings sanskaras. Of course, the scientists will only know the very top layer of these at a kind of a theoretical level. But awakening means we will know these intimately as the foundations of our structure. And that is why Baba is telling us about it, because they become very important in mass awakening of his creation. So he begins his major book, God Speaks, with this topic. He kind of has a little preamble on the first page, but immediately in the second page, he introduces the idea of sanskaras. He says, if now all souls are in the oversoul and are all one, then why is there any difference in the consciousness, in the planes, in the experiences, and in the states? Then he drops the bombshell. The cause of this difference is that the souls have different and diverse impressions, parentheses, sanskaras. So he introduces this in a big way and talks about it. And we have shown some diagrams in passing how he has coded the spiritual evolution and involution in those diagrams. And maybe we will have a chance to talk about it more. But these sanskaras, sanskaric fibers, have been known by many people, even by those who have had maybe just psychic awareness, not even any spiritual advancement. I remember early on, before I even learned about Baba, when the drug craze was, the hallucinogenic drugs were, being touted as mind expanding and consciousness expanding. There was a book that came out by this fellow called Carlos Castanedas. He had spent some time with a brujo, a witch doctor in South America, and had learned some things and had witnessed certain things. And I remember one of the things he was talking about was how he, meaning this witch doctor, was able to maneuver over these sheer surfaces of rock and walk across, clinging to them with such ease. And when he asked, how do you do this? He said, very simply, I just put my fibers out and connect to the fibers of the mountain. And so even at that level, these sanskaras are sometimes sent. And I wouldn't be surprised that in martial arts, people develop a talent to use these sanskaras, how they can topple somebody even without touching them. But the real, so they have many levels, these sanskaras, and the very center of the sanskaric fiber is this white hot divine force that is the force of the avatar. And that is why all of creation can relate to the avatar, because we all carry that central core within each sanskaric fiber that is the avatar's energy. So, what is the role of individuality in the formation of sanskaras? Some of this information is repetitious, but because it is new, it takes a while. We think we know it, but then, it doesn't quite stick. So I'm going to repeat some of the stuff that we've talked about before. The role of individuality is to focus on specific learning. As you know, we have to become perfect. No way around it. Whether we want it, whether we don't want it, we have to become perfect. And to become perfect, we have to experience everything and to learn and know everything, not by the mind, although that's part of it, but by living it, by being it, by experiencing it. We have to be everything. And so the role of the individuality is to focus that learning onto the different segments of the oppositional world in which we live in. First this, then that, then that. We spend lifetimes learning one aspect. Then we come back and we consider that aspect to be wrong and focus on the other aspect that we thought in the previous lives to be wrong, and we master that. So this way we go all around the circle and we master all that there is to master. And all of these learnings and experiences are kept as codes on these sanskaric fibers. And so the structure of the learning and experience are these sanskaric fibers. Then it comes a time when we have learned everything there is to learn, and then we come back in a lifetime, and the only thing we don't know is the life in that particular life, which we were, that ego that we were just born. And ego is nothing but the consolidation of these sanskaric fibers. In fact, our whole body, as dear Reza reminded us last time, our entire body, as Baba talks about in God Speaks, is congealed around these sanskaric fibers that tell us what color eye we have, tell us what propensities we have in life. And so now that we have everything experienced, we live and work out and learn that life, which is to become shortly an unwinding life. So, but before unwinding, so unwinding begins when experience begins to be released from these sanskaric fibers. And what happens is that all the oppositional learning that we have in the past comes together and unifies. And ultimately, when everything is unified, then we are united with all of it, or we are united with God. But it happens in bits and pieces. And each lifetime, a certain set of themes come together to be unified, come together, and when they unify, the subjective experience is love and tears. And it sometimes there's no reason that we can think of that we're feeling the love, or we always try to assign something to it because that's the way the mind works. But you just feel love, and then sometimes you just burst out crying for no reason at all. And these are the times that those unifications happen. And unless this fuel of duality is there to ignite and create this unification, this explosion of love, there won't be a love. So individuality creates these opposites that get congealed, and the better we have learned them, the more zealous we have been about our ideas, the more prejudiced we have been about a specific way of looking at life, the stronger those energies are. And when they come together, they propel and they ignite and they are released from these sanskaric fibers. And when that happens, these fibers kind of fall like hair around you, and then gradually they are lifted and they connect to levels of divinity that they are in harmony with. Those who are on the, have done enough cleansing to get on the mental planes, they immediately go there. But that doesn't mean the end of it. When they come back again, they go through the same process again, but more quickly. And more sanskaras get unwound and becomes easier to unwind. I was remembering something that reminded me of Dr. Duncan and of Francis Brabazon. I don't know if I talked about this last time, but even if I have, I'll repeat it. What reminded me of them was this remarkable saint, Padre Pio. He was a remarkable man in the sense that he had the astigmata, the wounds of the Christ, just like Saint Francis had. And he was contemporary, and he lived during the World War I. He died, I think, in 1963. And his entire life was devoted to God, of course. And he was such that in the beginning of his life, every time he went to the monastery because he wanted to be a monk. But before he became a monk, he was in the army. Again, you see, the first part of the life is unwinding that particular ego of that life. He was in the army, just like St. Francis was in the army before he became devoted to God and became St. Francis. And then he joined a monastery. But every time he would go to the monastery, he would get violently and deathly ill to the level that they would send him home to die. He would get that ill. And these illnesses are also ways that sanskaric impressions get cleansed. Physical ailments are perhaps the easiest way to cleanse that. But towards the end of his life, not the end, but the half part of his life, he started to go through a period when he would closet himself at night in this room, and people would hear furniture being thrown and big sounds and big clanks and big, like he was in a fight with something. And in the morning, they would see that all the furniture is all over the place, it's broken and whatnot. And when they would ask him, what happened? He said, I was fighting with the devil. So in that culture, in that idiom, in that Christian faith, that is how such experiences are interpreted as in a fight with the devil. Now we turn into Francis and Dr. Duncan. In this delightful book that Sheila Fenster dictated to David, her husband, Growing Up with God, she talks about occasions when Dr. Duncan would throw his furniture out of the room. And Baba would say, don't worry about it. Let him do what he has to do. And he would be just, furious and throwing things around. That is because those very base sanskaras come to the surface and you have no control over them. And so you just have to do it. And that is why during unwinding, do's and don'ts no longer work. Do's and don'ts are for the winding phase to bring direction into the learning. But during unwinding, everything that you have learned in the past has to come to the surface and be spent and be divinized and be sublimated. And that's why Baba was kept repeating, don't force it. Don't try to, sit in the corner, concentrate and, force things, because that way you're creating more sanskara. You have to let it go. And that's why he didn't give any miracles, because miracles will only work during the winding phase. And basically what miracles are is that you can't escape karma, but the saints and masters sometimes are able to change the timing of things. So somebody is in a predicament that he can't take his ailment or his poverty or whatever it is anymore, and they kind of switch it around and say, okay, in some other lifetime you'll do that. But the learning has to happen. But when unwinding happens, there's nothing to be redone at a different lifetime. You have to do it. And that is why Baba could not or did not interfere with people's ailments, especially his Mandali. You look at how much they suffered and how ill they were, and dearest Meher herself, all of them. So during unwinding, see, these are things that we're not familiar with, because creation didn't used to be that way. The majority of the people did the winding work. Only a few did, unwinding. Saint Teresa, went through periods of that sort. Saint Francis, Saint Augustine. But the rest of the folks didn't do that. We all wound, and now it's time for all of us to unwind. So this is again one of the new things that this Advent is bringing about. And so no miracles. And we talked, I think, about how in his message, The Highest of the High, Baba chose an opportunity in 1953 to say, don't come to me for miracles, for taking, for giving you things or making you well. Come to me to take things away from you. That is why I have come. If you ask me to give you things, you're asking me to undo what I have done, which is to start this unwinding process for everyone. But of course, the beauty of it is, he says, when you unwind and all these things come up, give it to me, good or bad. How many times has he said this? Just give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, because that's the only way that if we keep thinking of it as our own, which is natural, we are perpetuating it. But the more we learn to give it to him and know that it is his will and being resigned to his will, the more we become good at it and the more we become grateful to him. I mean, his wash of love is so encompassing that allows us to, withstand anything. And if we can't handle it anymore, we say, Baba, this is what Upasni Maharaj told the Mandali. He said, look, I've given my key to Merwan. go and follow him, do whatever he says. But if it gets to a point where you can't take it anymore, just let him know. And this is what we can do with Baba, because he's there with his grace as well as with his laws. And so if we give it to him and we ask him for help, he will do what is necessary without jeopardizing our learning, without jeopardizing our unwinding. And that is why Baba didn't want us to go to saints. Not that it's bad to go to saint. I think it takes a while before the whole of creation turns this way. So still there are many who need to go to saints. But he said, for those of you who are following me, don't go to saints. Just come to me. I will take care of you. And so, interesting, I heard that, when they were planning for how to prepare Meherabad for the future so that, thousands and hundreds of thousands of pilgrims could be housed and taken care of, the people from Meherabad went to Sai Baba's Samadhi, where there are millions of people are coming and there are huge numbers come. And they wanted to know how to learn how they do it or what works best and so forth. So in the course of conversations, one of the people from Sai Baba group said, well, do you know why people come to Sai Baba? And our people thought, well, they come for Sai Baba. And I said, no, they come for miracles. So you see, that is still happening and is going to continue to happen for people to go for miracles to Sai Baba. But those of us who go to Meher Baba, we go to give thanks and we go to offer our lives again at his feet. And I'm kind of talking to myself because I'm going to be there end of next week. So I'll be there maybe when Farshid and Marjan are still there. I don't know when they're returning. But so we are not, after saints and miracles anymore. We are after Meher Baba, who is going to wash everything clean with his love. So I think I'm going to stop here and see if there are any thoughts, questions.
Actually, it was interesting, Farhad, when you mentioned about miracles that take away the pain. I always, well, back of our mind, we think it's gone forever. But so it means we have to face it no matter what in some other lifetime. I guess that's how it is, right?
Well, that's my understanding, that one can't be cheated out of one's learning. God is too compassionate to cheat us out of what we have to learn. Because when we become ill, it is not for us. It is for all of those who are pulled in to care for us or who are impacted by this illness in some way. For the physicians who are going to learn from us, for our caregivers, for all the karmic connections that we have with other people and the give and take of that. It is the big picture. And so it is part of the learning that we have to do. And if it gets to be too much, we say, hey, Baba, give me a break. You may give us a break, but not always.
It's better face it and take it this lifetime. Elizabeth has her hand up. Jai Baba, Elizabeth.
Jai Baba, good evening, Farhad. I wanted to make sure I understand what you were talking about in the unwinding phase. And I think what you said, each time it would be faster once you go through that. So I'm assuming you mean that as people die and come back and reincarnate in the unwinding phase, that it takes them less time because the sanskaras are being lightened with each new lifetime because you've gotten rid of some. Did I understand that correctly?
That's part of it. And another part of it is that one develops faculties that allow that to happen more rapidly. And one develops faculties that not only make it happen faster, but to bear it more easily, to put up with it more easily. And the thing is that as one's immediate ego dissolves and the fibers go up to whatever level they're supposed to go up to, then that energy becomes available to process the remaining unwinding. Now, sometimes the person has a function, so he stops unwinding to perform whatever function God wants him to do. Some saints have, charges from God to do certain work. And so they may temporarily not unwind in that life anything, but do whatever God wants them to do. And then they come back and continue the process.
And the faculties, you said one develops faculties, but what are those faculties? You didn't mention what they are.
The faculty to process more easily. It's an ease. It's like, you develop a skill to play a piano or something. You develop a skill. Like I watch these talent shows, and these youngsters, 5 years or 11 years, come with these remarkable talents, singing, piano. So they have learned all of these in previous lives, and now it's easy. It's facile. They don't have to spend a whole lifetime learning it.
Okay, so I guess I was thinking you meant something like healing faculties, or the ability to have sight, or those kind of things, which I guess could also be called rishis or something like that.
Cities.
Cities.
Yeah. See, we have done all of that in the winding phase.
I see.
During the winding phase, the only way that divine force could be focused down here was through these, very disciplined lives that a great master would train, spiritual aspirants in practices to artificially pull down. And along with that would come these cities. All of that was part of the winding. And so now those faculties are also with us, so they will come to the surface at times without us wanting them. They just appear because they're in the back, in our part of our sanskaric makeup. And Baba, so the idea is not to go after them, not to seek them, just as Baba said, but if they come, then seek Baba's help on how to handle it, not to kind of go crazy with it or get, big head about it or anything. It's just a natural part of the unwinding.
So how does one know if one is still winding or unwinding, or does one know?
I am told that it's very easy to tell, for a master to tell. It has to do with the radiance of that shines out of the eyes. That doesn't mean that we can look in the mirror and say, check those eyes. we can't do it, but it's very easy for masters to see that.
But we can't see it ourselves. We are not conscious
and we shouldn't be.
Okay.
I mean, what do we care? We are Babas. He'll do with us whatever he wants. He wants us to wind, we'll wind. He wants to unwind, we'll unwind.
Okay, thank
You
you.
know, sure.
Okay, Bob.
Jai Baba. I'm so glad I was so clear that everybody understood everything.
Beautiful information, always awakening. Thank you so much. Thank you, Farhad. Jai Baba, Jai
Jai
Meher.
Baba. فرشید جان
Jai Baba فرشید جان. صدای
شما
ما
کی برمیگردی عزیز؟
3 روز دیگه اینجا داریم برمیگردیم. بشنبه.
خب پس ما نمیبینیم شما رو.
14.
ما 18 هم میرسیم به هند و 20 میایم مهرآباد.
به سلامتی به سلامتی.
خیلی ممنون فرشید جان. مرجان عزیز برای اینکه ما رو کانکت کردید به سمادی بابا و همینطور دفعه پیش. What wonderful treats you guys are giving us from Baba Samadhi. Thank you so much.
It looks like Jeff Wolverton is there too. Is that right?
Yeah. Jeff is right here. Jeff, somebody wants to talk to you. Say hi.
Hi, Jeff. Good to see you all.
Jai Baba,
Jai Baba.
how are you? فرشید جان میشنون صدا؟
He says you should be able to hear me, but I guess
Can hear
We
you
can
now.
hear you now.
I like
can-
the. Oh, I hear you. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I like the companion there with his arm around you. That looks great. You should see yourself.
Yes, he is.
And you got a white.
He's my
We've got a white
No,
horse.
no, here we are. We're in the paradise. You know,
Yeah.
we're trying to behave ourselves in paradise. You
Good
know?
luck.
But you guys look great. Yeah.
So how long
Yeah.
are you
So
there,
here, I'll
Jeff?
get back to you. Much, much love.
Thank you.
Just leaving tomorrow morning. So this
We'll miss you. We'll be there the following week.
is, yeah.
Jai
Jai
Baba,
Baba, yeah. Oh, you're going to be
Jai
there.
Baba.
Yeah. Jai Baba. Yeah.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Jai.
Avatar.
Har Meher Baba ki
Let's do
jai.
an Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Har Meher Baba ki jai.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Jai
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Jai Meher Baba. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Farshid Jan. Thank you.
Jai Baba.
Jai
Jai
Baba,
Baba.
Jai Meher Baba. Jai
Jai Meher.